want to share about this morning is spiritual confidence. Spiritual confidence. We're in a place now where we're beginning to stretch out a little bit. I think grow up a little bit, realize the responsibility that we have as believers, and realize that if we don't do it, it ain't gonna get done. So having spiritual confidence, taking what we've been learning, what we've been gleaning, the experiences and the encounters, taking that and just own our role as citizens of God's kingdom, as ambassadors, as kings and priests, as representatives in the earth, representing the kingdom, as members of the body of Jesus Christ. So garnering this confidence so that we can actually move forward. I'm going to share out of Second Timothy today. First verse is going to be Second Timothy, verse 1, 5 through 7. First passage, and then I'll eventually get to Second Timothy 2:15. You'll be familiar with both of these. It is a note, a letter from the elder Paul to the young Timothy, and this is Paul encouraging Timothy as he is assigned to pastor this church, and being new and young, uh, hasn't developed the confidence yet to really serve in the way that he has to serve this congregation. Paul deals with the issues of, dealing with the young versus dealing with the old, provides wisdom for that, and reminds him of some things that are key. And I want to use that as a foundation for this conversation today. It is a pastoral letter, meaning it is written to him to aid in his pastoring, but it's also one of universal application. Um, we have the same role and responsibility in terms of serving, and these things also apply. So I'm going to just kind of walk this out, and hopefully it will inform your mind and encourage your heart. So Second Timothy chapter 1, verses 5 through 7. When I call to remembrance the genuine faith that is in you, which dwelt first in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, and I'm persuaded in you also. Therefore, I remind you to stir up the gift of God which is in you through the laying on of my hands. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. I like everything stated in these verses, these few verses. I like everything stated. I like what it suggests and what it states straight and directly. And I think it speaks to us. So let me just kind of walk it out as Paul was reminding Timothy. Number one, I found powerful of his spiritual lineage, of his spiritual lineage. I don't know how much we sit to think about that. But in my case, I had my mama, right? I had my mama who was a lover of Jesus Christ, for sure, for sure. I shared with the group, I think it might have been on Daystart. I was writing, preparing one of the books that I'm trying to complete eventually. And in it, I gave the testimony of how when my mother talked about Jesus in the house, it was almost like she was talking about a family friend. It was like this was somebody that she had a real personal relationship with. I never felt any sort of religious vibe from when mama talked about Jesus. It's like Jesus can fix that. He can work that out, you know. And it wasn't over the top. It wasn't like, every day there was this religious language, but there was this knowing when there was trouble or need, that was her go-to. That's spiritual lineage. And then there was there was her mother, and that I found that interesting because I didn't have this on my father's side, just like Timothy. Timothy's dad is not mentioned in here. I also found that interesting. So on my mother's side, my grandmother, and you've heard about it. By the way, that grandma name was Nancy. My grandmother sat every day, and she was going to read her Bible. Quiet. She was a quiet lady. She's going to sit and read her Bible, and then she's read her newspaper. Family gatherings, she would always remind the young folk, serve them while you're young. And she quoted out of Ecclesiastes. Serve God while you're young. Don't waste your young years and then get older and regret not having served God. Serve. So this is spiritual lineage. These are things that I'm listening to and observing. Something simple. My grandmother kept the slop bucket at the door. For those of you who know about that, that's when you take the scraps. Now, what we do with the scraps and the leftover stuff on the plates is we put it in the trash can or down the garbage disposal. They didn't play that. Nothing was going to be wasted. So she had that slop bucket. That was for the stray dogs in the neighborhood. And she set the bucket out. They come eat. They knew where to come. Miss Nancy going to take care of them. I remember what we used to call hobos that would come to the back door, and she would feed them. This is spiritual lineage. She is walking out the spirit of Christ in front of me. Never preached. In fact, I don't recall my grandmother ever directly speaking to me about these things. She just lived it. Of course, then we went to church, had a little corner church, little country church on the corner that my cousin pastored, who, by the way, if you came in late, he would restart the message because he would make sure everybody got it. So you might have got 3 or 4 restarts before you were done with that Sunday. So spiritual lineage, spiritual lineage. So Paul said, recall and remember what's in you and remember where you got it from. And then he says, I'm convinced that this foundation of faith, it's in you too. The way they live, the way they engage God, how they relate to God, that's in you too, Timothy. The way they serve, that's in you too, Timothy. You do know sometimes somebody has to tell you. Of course, I couldn't help but to think about Tim and tomorrow. I started just slice and call it Tim, right? Somebody has to tell Tim what's in him. Has to. This foundation of faith, what you've seen live before you, what you've heard, the prayers you've heard, the faithfulness to God in the midst of hardship and pain and suffering. And oh, listen, the goodness of God, where He came through and you watched it. You watched your mother pray. You watched your grandmother pray. You saw God deliver. This is a foundation of faith that's in you. Somebody's got to point to that. And we should do it to one another, by the way. It's like don't forget your name. Don't forget the family you came from. Some families are really, really, really hard on that one. They go in deep. Like don't forget your name. Don't forget our reputation in the community. Don't forget. And don't be embarrassing folk out here. Work with what's been put in you. And then he said, stir up the gift. Now, this is that spiritual confidence piece. We're starting to roll into that. Stir up the gift. Think about that. That means there's your responsibility to recognize what God has given you to serve, right? And don't passively just allow that to lay there, but stir it up. Tomorrow just got through mentioning this ministry and how we're formed and our place in the body and what God has put in us. And what I heard from their conversation was we need to be mindful of this. And then, right, as it's stated here, we need to stir up whatever gifting that's in us. Step into it. I like that language. You heard me mention that when it comes to like gifts of the spirit, but this is all, whatever gift it is, step into it. That confidence to step in and begin to um to walk it out. Sometimes you have to refresh your memory. That's why journaling is good. Go back and see how God has used you in the past. Step into it. Stir up the gift. We have the capacity, clearly, because it's stated right here, as Paul shares with Timothy, stir up the gifts that's within you. So if he's instructing him to stir it up, that means it can go dormant. That means it can fall flat. That means it could go without use. So stir it up. Stir it up. Then he mentions the laying on of hands. We have our visual of that. And I think physically it is also a part of it. But what I hear with Paul is there's been an agreement with heaven, or we've agreed with heaven that this gifting is in you. You can pastor Timothy. You have the capacity, you have the skill set, you have the tools, you have the lineage, the spiritual lineage that will enable you to do this. And you have me as a father in the gospel who's telling you you can do it. And so he's released him by laying on of hands. When you lay on hands in the ordination sense, by the way, to ordain means to set in place. To ordain is simply the acknowledgement of what heaven has already said. So the ordination process that we go through is not doing anything other than echoing what God has said. And he says, I've done that, Tim. I've done that. I'm agreeing that, yes, heaven has got it right. We see it, we understand, but you have to do something. To do something. So you've been set forth. Acknowledge that, recognize that, understand what that means. And then he goes on and he addresses the fear factor. And all of us kind of deal with this on some level or the other. But who am I? I mean, what do I have to work with? You remember Moses. Moses said, wait. You want me to do what? I got a speech impediment. I ain't the most likable guy around here. So, but you want me to go handle this business. And the Lord said, yeah, but let me just go ahead and give you Aaron to help you out. So you get you an interpreter, right? But you're gonna get it done. That source of fear, that reluctance. God is not giving you the spirit of reluctance. He's not giving you to lag in confidence. He's not the source of any of that. And recognize that. So if that's what you're feeling, if you're feeling somewhat reluctant, you're feeling, somewhat, incompetent even, we can feel that. Just go and reflect. Look at your spiritual lineage. Look at the foundation that's in you. The gifts that you're aware of, stir them up. God is not giving you this spirit of fear. So we're going to challenge that. We're going to look that fear in the face, and we're going to say, no, we're going to move forward with what we know God has said. All of us have the ability to evangelize, for example. And I'm so glad we had that opportunity to go down in Tulsa and with Darren, the three of us, because we got a chance to hear some things. I was thanking God for it yesterday. I said, now that's our weakness. And when I say weakness, meaning it's not been the focus of the emphasis of the ministry up until this point. We've been more on the side of the restorative piece and the building up and the edifying. But I just felt and heard God speaking about the evangelism piece, right? And of course that uh, approaching people, talking to people, sharing with people, it can be challenging. It's not comfortable. But I hear the Lord saying through this message today that we need to step into it and not be fearful, but confront the fear. We do step one. We're doing step one. We got 1-5. Now we got 5. Now we got 1 every day. Step into it. You get that 5 in the morning. That means your first voice, the first voice you hear is God speaking, right? So we're confronting the fear. we're pushing back on the lag, on the reluctance. We're stepping into it. And then he goes on, he said, God has given us supernatural power. That verse 7. He's given us supernatural power. He said, but of powers, the way it's stated in the text. He's given us supernatural power, supernatural, not just the natural. So with that, you know, a good practice. So I'm praying for the young man yesterday. I'm trying not to be too mindful of my words because you can trip up on the word thing and that becomes your focus. I said, I must think of the fact that the Spirit of the living God is present in this moment. And what he will do supersedes anything I could think or say with words. My confidence is in what the Holy Spirit is doing in this moment. Every time you offer prayer, that's your thoughts should go, God is doing something extraordinary in this moment. I don't need evidence. I don't have to see a thing. I'm stepping into the gift. I'm stirring up the gift. I'm walking in obedience. I'm serving in the capacity that I have. So my spiritual confidence is in the work of the Holy Spirit in all that I do. And even in my missteps, Timothy, this dude is just coming out the gate. So Paul knows, and all of us who have been in ministry know he gonna make some mistakes. He gonna do some stuff that ain't smooth and easy. Paul said, be careful how you deal with the young one. Make sure you respect the old folk. Because he knows that the young and the old going to present challenges. And sometimes old folk are more challenging than the young folk. That spirit of stubbornness, I won't go. Let me just continue. But God's given us supernatural power. And then he goes on. He said, and the ability to love. Then he goes on and he says, and soundness of mind. Stable thinking. We don't have to be spiritual weirdos. Right? We don't have to be spiritual weirdos. We don't have to spiritualize everything. Some things, it is what it is. Right there. I told a young man yesterday, I said, you know, it's one thing to lie to yourself, it's another thing to lie to me. I said, I'm not confused. I'm clear. But if you want to continue to lie to yourself, that's fine. Don't expect me to co-sign on that. Soundness of mind, even in our engagements, in our ministering, in our sharing, right? He's given us soundness of mind, the ability to develop spiritual intelligence. So look at that. Look at that trifecta. You got supernatural power. You have this divine ability to love, and then you got good sense, good spiritual sense. Now that's our strength, you know, developing that good spiritual intelligence, good spiritual ability, so that we not only do we do, but we know why we do, we know how we do, we know what he do, right? We're confident in it. You know, the song says, we don't need no more dumb Christians. I'm so glad it's a song now. That's an anthem. It's a challenge. It's a provocation. Yeah. Some people, I got response from, oh my God, well, you sure we should be? And then I got a chuckle over here. And then I got, people are like, yeah, man, true. Yeah. Right? Spiritual intelligence. Timothy was reminded by Paul, you got this working for you. You got this working for you. Jabal reminded us today in their conversations, they said, we got something, but we need to use it. Step on the gas. Stir up the gift. Step in there. And so then 2 Timothy 2:15, he tells Timothy, be diligent to present yourself approved to God, a worker who does not need to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. And here again, we have a list that if we just walk this down and be responsive to it, it can change the game. And his first statement was, be diligent. This is where a good majority of church folk fall short. And we have excuses for it. The song say no more excuses. Man, okay, anyway. Move on, Nolan. The word diligent means careful and persistent work or effort. This isn't a passive exercise. This requires you to carefully and persistently get into the book. And he says, you know, surrender to this. Surrender to this. And then be careful not to embarrass yourself, to embarrass your mama and grandmama. You're going out here misrepresenting the family name. Be diligent. Be careful. Surrender. And don't embarrass your teacher. Don't embarrass your pastor. You know, people say, I go to a thus and so church. And I'll tell you something. And typically, when people are really, really excited about that, it's when they got all the bells and whistles. They want you to know that they're associated with that. Don't embarrass your teacher. I'm your pastor, man. Don't go out and you don't know the book. You should know. And then finally, don't embarrass the Lord. This is weighty. This is a weighty ask, and we should feel that weight. When we read this text, we should feel that weight, and we should respond to it, not with excuses, not with another story, another sad love song. What song was that tomorrow? So don't do it. He said, take time to know the book. Take time to know the book. So I wrap it up with the call to action. No excuses. It's time to begin to walk in a functional faith, not an aspirational faith, not a finna faith. You know, finna, I'm finna do it. A functional faith. Push back on fear, push back on reluctance, pull the trigger. And listen, I think I shared last week. I got a very simple, hey, you mind if I pray for you? All right, wherever y'all at, we ain't in the room together, but let's say it together. Hey, come on, just repeat after me, y'all. Hey, can I pray for you? Can we do it again? Hey, can I pray for you? I don't see y'all lips moving. And I don't see your lips moving. Tell Buffy. Buffy, that is to Buffy. Hey, can I pray for you? Real simple. Real simple exercise. Every day, you find one person. And it's gonna take a minute because it's gonna be awkward at first. That's okay. Practicing it. Paul said, you got to stir up the gift. How you gonna stir up the gift? You can't sit in the car with the engine going and park and expect to put mileage on the vehicle. Stir up the gift. Push back on fear. Put what you know into action. Come on now. Y'all know some stuff. Y'all know some stuff. So there it is. The challenge has been made. You up for the challenge?
Thank you for joining us here at the Journey Center. We pray this message has blessed and encouraged you. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss an opportunity to grow in faith with us. We have more uplifting messages and powerful teachings coming your way, so stay connected. Until next time, may God bless you and guide you on your journey.